If you've ever had this feeling that something was terribly wrong with the world that we live in, but you couldn't figure out just what it was, then you've come to the right place. Secret societies, mystery religions, and the Illuminati have been controlling our reality since the beginning of time. But not anymore, because there is an awakening happening, and you are about to become a part of it. Wake up, because this is a call for an uprising.
This is a call for an uprising. Welcome to today's show. I'm sure all of you have heard the nonsense going on with Kanye West week after week after week after week, and it's all being done on purpose. I've been saying it for a few years now. You're seeing it being done on purpose for a reason. And a lot of it obviously has to do with anti-Semitism, which isn't a real thing because it's not a real thing. These types of terms like homophobia and anti-Semitism, they're terms used to deflect from questions being asked, from investigations being done. And if you question any of these certain individuals or people who claim to be one thing and they're not, then you automatically are suspended from speaking. You're automatically shunned in society. And I'll explain in deeper detail what it's about in a second. Before I get to it, this video is definitely not staying up very long. And if you're hearing this, some of you think that I've been gone for 5 years, and I haven't been. I have new channels, and I've been uploading there exclusively, and I will, as of Tuesday, be uploading there exclusively, not here. So please, at the very least, if you appreciate this content, take 10 seconds to pause the video and sub to those channels. Now, they are both linked below. Make sure you sub to both of them, because I do have a strike on the one channel. Another one I will not be able to upload for 2 weeks, and then the channel's terminated. This is a continuing thing that's occurred to me. The channel you're hearing this on now was demonetized years ago. The reason I don't upload on it is because if you look at the traction on this channel, it does not get recommended, does not get shown to people, so I will never get more subs. And it's not about getting more subs, it's about reaching new people. The people who are already here already clearly know the truth. Now, they might not listen to every video that I do, but they are aware of what is going on for the most part. Some of it, at least. So I have to keep creating new channels so that they get recommended in the algorithm and that I can continue to reach and wake up more people. Ultimately, that's the purpose of doing this. Okay, when your channels are demonetized, they're automatically shadow banned. That is a fact. If you're not in the YouTube Partner Program, you will not ever be recommended. You will not ever get pushed up in the algorithm. You will be buried. And that's what this channel is. So that's why I don't upload on it, because the people who already know this stuff can follow me to my other channels, but I want to reach more people and help them see the truth. And the truth is that Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the life. And all the things you see going on in the world are all prophesized. They are all biblical. And they are all being done by Satan and his minions. So those are the things that I want to expose. So please sub to those channels now. Again, and a reminder that I do have a website at callforanuprising.com. It is an excellent website, and it's an excellent website because of the people who are on it, not because of me. I do upload exclusive content over on the website, but the forum itself is extremely active. You could spend hours every day on the forum learning new things about different things you didn't know, actual education on this stuff, unlike the stuff we learned in school, which were actual lies. Conspiracies that aren't really conspiracies, which are facts, but things that you probably didn't know about. Things like the Titanic, things like the shape of the earth people discuss, things like Freemasonry, secret societies, other things in the news, the stuff going on with Russia and Ukraine, everything that's behind what's going on, of course, the 1-9er, which recently occurred, of course. I can't say the word because the algorithm will read it, but all that stuff being discussed on the website. It's $2.99 a month. The reason that there's a price for the website is to keep the website maintained, to keep the website running, and of course to keep trolls out, because how many people would join the website and just start trolling the forum and bothering people? For $2.99, it keeps people away from doing that. It keeps it as a safe community, of course, and it's the price of a bottle of water these days. So it's $2.99 a month. Definitely check it out if you have it. You will not be disappointed. And a reminder, other ways you can help the channel. Becoming a patron is one way. I've lost so many patrons. I barely have any anymore at this point, which is fine. But if you want to support the channel, you like the content, it's a great way to help me out. I don't have PayPal. I got thrown off of there, so Patreon's the only way you could do that. And I do have a merchandise shop just with some shirts if you want to support the channel. It's another way you can help out. Obviously, some of the shirts are funny too, so you can wear it on holidays around people, and they'll maybe raise some eyebrows, and they'll start waking up or understanding what's actually going on. So all of those are things that hopefully everybody will at least consider getting involved in, but at the very least, please subscribe to the other channels now. Okay, so here's the stuff that's going on, if you haven't heard. Kanye West is now hanging out. He's meeting with Donald Trump. He's hanging out with alt-right frauds, Nick Fuentes and the other guy, Milo, who I've exposed in the past. So this is a new faction, okay? This is supposedly a faction that's been canceled, that's joined together because they've been canceled. In reality, these people haven't been canceled, okay? People like me constantly are getting channels taken down over and over. And so many other great channels out on YouTube, right, have been taken down. I actually even had to rebrand. These people are showing up and being promoted on Jimmy Kimmel, on CNN. Kanye West is doing his job. His job right now is to make conspiracy theorists look insane by saying insane things, never backing up what he's saying and never explaining anything. Recently, he's come out and talked about his mother being a blood sacrifice. These are all things that are factual, but Kanye West was involved in the blood sacrifice of his mother. He's pretending like she just randomly sacrificed. He was okay with it for 10 years, becoming famous and rich, and then suddenly now he wants to speak out against it. Oh, what a great son. Huh? Makes zero sense, right? Now he's running around doing this anti-Semitic nonsense. There's a lot of reasons for this. One is because all of the stuff that's going on in the world is making people suspicious. People are starting to go, what is going on with the outbreak that just occurred, the vaccines, all of the other stuff with the world wars, with the food shortages? People are becoming suspicious as to what's going on as they're rounding everyone and herding them into the New World Order. So people are starting to realize about the Zionism agenda. So what they do is we're far removed from World War II. So how are they going to keep bringing these things up and making people feel sympathetic towards the hijacked Jewish race? Well, they have to do stuff like this. So Kanye comes out and he just says anti-Semitic, quote unquote, because that's not a real term. And why is it not a real term? Well, we know for a fact it's not a real term. If someone like Kanye actually talked about the book of Revelation and talked about Revelation chapter 3, verse 9, behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. Behold, I will make them come and worship before thy feet, and to know that I have loved thee. So in the Bible, it tells us that there are those who are claiming to be Jews, but they are not Jews. And I will explain in more detail after I go through these three clowns about how we know that, because the Balfour Declaration shows us that Israel was hijacked. This is documented by the Rothschilds. The Rothschilds were directly involved. The Rothschilds, the same family who runs the bank, the Federal Reserve, who runs currency, owns the land of Israel. And in the name of Zionism, which is a political movement, has nothing to do with the actual Jewish people. The people who have occupied the land are Babylonians for the most part. They're Babylonian Jews. They follow Babylonian teachings. Okay, I'll get into more detail about that towards the end of the video, so make sure you continue to listen. Let's get back to Kanye. This is some of the stuff that Kanye, of course, going on with Alex Jones, because they want to link all conspiracy theorists who talk about this stuff into this anti-Semitic, crazy, lunatic, dangerous, what's the word? Into a basket, right? They want to put all of us into this basket and make us all look like lunatics. Alex Jones is obviously doing his role right now. He's going, getting brought in front of the Sandy Hook parents. He's now saying, oh, I shouldn't have made up this stuff about Sandy Hook, instead of saying, hey, I actually don't believe it's real. Can we have an investigation? Can we look into it? I want evidence before I change my mind. Of course not. Of course not. He just bows down, pretends to lose $1 billion, and that adds to more censorship. It adds to more people not questioning what's going on in the news, because that's the purpose of the trial. They don't want people questioning what they tell you on the news. If you question it, you're a horrible person. You're hateful, and you should lose your money and your livelihood, et cetera, et cetera. That's how insane this is getting, right? So Ye goes on with him, with Nick Fuentes, and Ye, I'll just call him Kanye, and they start praising Hitler. And they start doing crazy lunatic stuff, looking like absolute buffoons. Take a look at these clips from InfoWars with Kanye West on with Alex Jones.
I got some jokes here from Owen Benjamin that I want to read about Ben Shapiro. Hey, Candace Owens, unplug this robot before he runs his mouth. Ben Shapiro's cardio is picking up shackles. Shapiro can tell how much change is in your pocket just from hearing a jingle. Shapiro is just mad that Kyrie won't sign his basketball. Back to you, Alex.
I mean, I'm in the twilight zone right now.
Netanyahu, what do you have to say? What do you have to say to Alex Jones right now, Nick Fuentes and Ye? It was bad. It was bad for Trump to meet with Nick and Ye. Okay. I had no idea your voice is going to sound like that, Netanyahu.
Schwarzenegger said he loved Hitler. They gave him an award. I'm just saying, I don't like Nazis, and I don't like what some of the mafias are doing either.
I like Hitler.
I don't think Hitler was a good guy. I get the Hugo Boss uniforms, amazing. But I mean, just because you're in love with the design, you're a designer. Can we just kind of say, like, you like the uniforms, but that's about it?
No. There's a lot of things that I love about Hitler. A lot of things.
So by doing that, there's no explanation, right? So people hear this, they just automatically go, man, why are they going after the Jewish people? Oh, they've suffered so much. Nobody asks, why for all these centuries have people gone after this specific group? Right? Nobody asked the question why. Oh, is it because they don't like the way they dress? They don't like the way they smell? They don't like the way they eat? No, it's because of the teachings that are in the books that they teach. Okay? The Talmud specifically, the Zohar. These books speak of them as being above other people and empowering them to control, enslave other people, et cetera, which I'll show you in a few minutes. Nick Fuentes is another character who wasn't even very popular. I mean, I didn't even know of him. I only know of him now because he's now the face of anti-Semitism, and he comes out and says ridiculous things without actually explaining anything and making people understand Zionism, the Rothschilds, the Balfour Declaration, and how Israel was occupied and really taken over by people who were claiming to be Jewish and who weren't Jewish, and how they hijacked the land. That's what the Balfour Declaration was about. So here's Nick Fuentes. These are the types of things that they're showing on the mainstream media because they want everyone to look and just be like, oh my gosh, all these people are conspiracy theorists, are complete nut jobs. Look at this. This is just absurd.
People calling me gay because I've never had a girlfriend. I think if anything, it makes me less gay. Never having a girlfriend, never having sex with a woman, really makes you more heterosexual because honestly, dating women is gay. Having sex with women is gay. And having sex with men is gay. And you know, it's all gay.
Right, so to be with women, you're gay. I mean, it's, then they label the homophobia with it, of course. It's just idiotic crap, right? So Kanye is now rubbing shoulders with him, right? Which makes no sense. How would they even know one another? Right? He's not hanging out with, Jay-Z or any of these people anymore. He's hanging out with Nick Fuentes of minimal YouTube fame. And then the other guy, Milo, is his campaign manager. Makes zero sense. Why? Well, Milo is a Zionist Jew. Milo has been spotted many times doing many satanic things, including taking blood baths. That's not anything to be suspicious about. He is Jewish, by the way. He's also into men. So isn't Kanye against these certain things? And he's also lost a lot of money because he was caught being involved in pedophilia. So interesting enough that he's the campaign manager. So if Kanye is so anti-Semitic, why would he hire a Jewish person to be the head of his campaign? Because it makes zero sense. That's why, because they're all puppets working together for a bigger goal. So that being said, the reason for it is to continue to bring anti-Semitism into the spotlight so that they can make more restrictions and more rules of people speaking against the teachings that are in the books that are being taught in the temples. Now, a lot of people here, like when I do videos on this, and they label me that, of course, because they don't listen, they don't understand, and they think like if I saw a Jewish person, oh, I can't stand that. That's not true. It's the specific teachings. There are people who are pretending to be Jewish who are not Jewish. That is the whole point of what most people have been trying to expose. But the problem is that they automatically get labeled anti-Semitism, so you can never get past that stage and actually say, okay, well, why are these people constantly getting run out of country after country after country? Well, it's because the teachings in their book. Now, Zionism and the Balfour Declaration, I'll start there, then I will show you what's in the Talmud. Zionism is a political movement. People hear it and they think it has to do with the Jewish people. It's a political movement started by the Rothschilds. The Rothschilds are in control of it. The Zionism movement is obviously going to be something that captures and brings in Christians and seduces them into the state of Israel and buying into it. Trump's obviously in and on board with it. But the Balfour Declaration is what exactly gave power to the Rothschilds over that land. And here's a few clips of Lord Rothschild talking about it.
It's been 100 years since the British government issued the Balfour Declaration, a document that would later become a cornerstone for the creation of the State of Israel. But why is Britain celebrating its colonial legacy while glossing over the 100 years of conflict that followed? Let's go back to November 2nd, 1917, when British Foreign Secretary Arthur Balfour sent a letter to Lord Walter Rothschild, a leader in the British Zionist Federation. Balfour's letter expressed sympathy for Jewish Zionist aspirations at the heart of Zionism, a political ideology calling for Jews to return to Palestine. The Balfour Declaration said the UK would use their best endeavors to facilitate the establishment of a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. So on that date, Zionism became an official objective of Britain's foreign policy. But the British had no legal authority to establish a home or a state for anyone in lands that they didn't own, a land where 92% of the local population were Muslims and Christians who were never consulted. And even though they didn't own the land, the British would soon control it.
The Foreign Office, November the 2nd, 1917. Dear Lord Rothschild, I have much pleasure in conveying to you, on behalf of His Majesty's government, the following declaration of sympathy with Jewish Zionist aspirations, which has been submitted to and approved by the Cabinet.
So it's possibly the most famous letter in modern Jewish history, and it begins with 3 words: Dear Lord Rothschild. Why was it that this letter was sent by the Foreign Secretary to your great-uncle Walter?
It's an interesting question because he was really interested in ornithology, although he became interested in Zionism. I think the reason was this, that it was primarily a movement from Eastern Europe, but they didn't clarify who was in charge of that movement. And in addition, it was, after all, in Great Britain. So they felt that the Rothschild family should be the one to whom it was addressed. And Walter was Lord Rothschild, and he was a Zionist. And those really are the background reasons.
So Walter received the Balfour Declaration, and I have a copy here. And I wonder if I could possibly ask you to read it for us.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. I'm going to put on my spectacles to make sure I read it accurately. His Majesty's government view with favour the establishment of Palestine as a national home for the Jewish people, and will use their best endeavours to facilitate the achievement of this object, it being clearly understood that nothing shall be done which may prejudice the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine, or the rights and political status enjoyed by Jews in any other country. I should be grateful if you would bring this declaration to the knowledge of the Zionist Federation. Yours, Arthur Balfour.
And here it is, the Balfour Declaration. What do you feel when you see it here?
I genuinely feel it's one of the most extraordinary moments in the history of the Jewish people. If you think it took 3,000 years to get to this, and then you say, how did this miracle happen? It's the most incredible piece of opportunism. I mean, if you think you had an impoverished would-be scientist, Chaim Weizmann, who somehow gets to England, meets a few people, including members of my family, seduces them. He has such great charm and conviction. He gets to Balfour, and he unbelievably persuades Balfour and Lloyd George, the Prime Minister, and most of the ministers, that this idea of the national home for Jews should be allowed to take place. I mean, it's so unlikely. And then he's, starts to fight a difficult battle with the British cabinet, and this letter goes through 5 drafts, as you know. And in the end, it comes out as a rather compromising letter. I mean, the essential point is there for the Jewish community to fasten on to. You have the first bit, which promises a national home rather than the national home. And then you have the bit that nothing that's to be done should in any way harm the Arab community. But you come back to the big point, which is that this is perhaps the greatest event in Jewish life for thousands of years.
So when this land is now owned by the Federal Reserve heads, the highest people in the pyramid that are currently alive, if you want to call, Lord Rothschild alive, I mean, it looks like, Crypt Keeper, like many of them do. They're the top of the pyramid. I know people believe the Vatican and the Pope are, well, they're neck and neck then. Okay, these are the two highest. Many believe the Rothschilds are the ones who deal directly with Satan himself. And they're the ones who perform probably the most, not probably, they perform the most heinous rituals you could possibly imagine. So they're the face of the Zionist movement, which is a political movement. Now, when you get into the Talmud and the teachings in it, this is what people should be talking about. They won't let you talk about it. They won't let you bring it up. They always bring up the Bible, and they bring up Sodom and Gomorrah and things like that. And they're like, Christians are the worst and all this stuff that's in the Bible, and they're hateful and they're bigots. If people, actually studied what's in the teachings of the Talmud, which have nothing to do with Judaism, they are all about Babylonian teachings. These are Babylonian teachings. That's what the Talmud is. And this is one of the most prominent, this is what they read at temple. These are some of the things that they talk about. Now I'm going to show you some clips from Ted Pike's documentaries. And Ted Pike, if you don't know Ted Pike, he is a warrior for God. He is one of the first people to start exposing this agenda, and he has dealt with the consequences of it his entire life. The ADL has been after him. He's been shut down over and over. And personally, I'm thankful for people like him or him. I'm thankful for him specifically for the work that he has done. And hopefully people will see his work for centuries and centuries. Obviously, I don't know if that's likely because they will, silence this type of content and shut these types of videos down. And even his videos are impossible to find. He has a few exposing Zionism and Christianity and all these other things involving the Talmud and the Jewish conspiracies. But here are clips about the Talmud. These are things that are being taught in their books. And this is why they don't want you questioning them, because they don't want people learning of some of the stuff that's being taught, especially involving children.
Treatise Sanhedrin, an extensive passage describes the right of the Pharisee to kill anyone, just as long as he did so indirectly. As one of dozens of examples, the Talmud tells us that if one bound his neighbor and he died of starvation, he is not liable to execution. In such an indirect manner, the Pharisees also killed Christ. Manipulating the Romans to actually wield the spear and sword, the Pharisees claimed, as their descendants do today, that since the Romans were the direct cause of the death of Christ, it is the Romans, not the Jews, who are guilty. Christ also called the Pharisees adulterers, an adulterous generation. The Talmud provides generous loopholes for adultery. It says the penalty for adultery does not include sex with a minor, the wife of a minor, or the wife of a heathen. The Talmud also encourages seduction of unwed adolescent girls called designated bondmaids. But it's important how such rapes are performed. With the designated bondmaid, one is guilty only in the case of natural connection, but not in the case of perverse connection. The Pharisees reasoned that rape in a perverted manner is outside the jurisdiction of the law. Normal rape, however, was punishable. In Babylon, sexual perversion of every kind had been a way of life for millenniums. The Pharisees were deeply influenced by such practices.
In 3 of the major treatises of the Talmud are found extensive passages which give legal endorsement to seduce and marry 3-year-old baby girls. In fact, many of the greatest rabbis of the Talmud, including Simeon ben Yochai, upheld this privilege. Today in Israel, thousands of Jews go to Meron every year to venerate the memory of Simeon ben Yochai, one of the most respected rabbis in the history of Judaism.
In one of dozens of endorsements of child sex, Simeon ben Yochai said, A proselyte under the age of 3 years and a day is permitted to marry a priest. Agreeing with Ben Yochai, the great Rabbah said, "When a grown-up man has intercourse with a little girl, it is nothing, for when the girl is less than this, 3 years and a day, it is as if one put the finger into the eye." The footnote to this passage says, "As tears come to the eye again and again, so does virginity come back to the little girl under 3 years." The same section confirms that sexual activity with small boys is in the same category. The intercourse of a small boy is not regarded as a sexual act. In addition to adulterers, Christ, in the story of the Good Samaritan, portrayed the Pharisees as racial bigots, too self-righteous to respond to the suffering of one who was not a Jew. It is true, because of the wickedness of the Canaanites, which included sodomy and infant sacrifice, Israel had been commanded by God to be harsh in her treatment of the inhabitants of the land. God made it clear that the Canaanites were not simply to be avoided, but destroyed. By the time of the New Testament, this method of preserving God's kingdom by separation and the sword had become obsolete. God no longer made a racial difference between men.
But the Pharisees were unfazed by God's new agenda. The Talmud was finally written down nearly 5 centuries after Christ, yet its critical, even homicidal attitudes toward Gentiles might have been lifted out of the book of Joshua. However, the quickest way to grasp the Talmudic view of Gentiles is not directly from the Talmud, but from the Jewish encyclopedias. If we quote an isolated opinion from the Talmud, a rabbi may quickly object, saying, "But that is not the overall opinion of the Talmud. That is not the definitive view." What the Jewish encyclopedia provides us is a definitive overview of perhaps hundreds of rabbinic statements on any subject, giving us accurate summaries of what the Talmud generally teaches.
In its article on Gentiles, the Jewish Encyclopedia begins to define what makes a Jew so different from a Gentile. According to the rabbis, only Israelites are men. Gentiles they class not as men, but as barbarians. Since Gentiles are not men in the fullest sense, so the Gentile is not a neighbor of a Jew. Further, since Gentile laws were too crude to admit of reciprocity, meaning too crude to be taken seriously, the Gentile was forever beneath the Jew. Gentiles were outlawed by God from the beginning, and thus had no property rights. The Almighty offered the Torah to the Gentile nations also, but since they refused to accept it, he withdrew his shining legal protection from them and transferred their property rights to Israel, who observed his law. Since the Talmud outlawed the child, or issue of a Gentile, as that of a beast, a Gentile had as little legal rights in a Jewish court as did an animal. The Talmud states that if a Gentile sue an Israelite, the verdict is for the defendant, the Israelite. Conversely, if the Israelite is the plaintiff, he obtains full damages. Because the Talmud conspires against Gentiles, if a Jew was ever caught telling a Gentile what the Talmud really says, such a person deserves death. So vile was the nature of a Gentile that the great Simeon ben Yochai said, "The best among the Gentiles deserves to be killed. The best of snakes ought to have its head crushed." Jews, however, are exalted beings in the Talmud, worthy of praise. Christ described the Pharisee who blessed himself, saying, "I thank thee, Lord, that I am not as other men." An eminent Talmudic rabbi says the same. "Blessed be thou, who hast not made me a Goy, or Gentile." There is a special antagonism between the Talmud and Jesus. The Talmud attacks him everywhere it can, even his mother. Mary, the Talmud says, was a whore who mated with carpenters. She who was the descendant of princes and governors played the harlot with carpenters. It naturally followed that the scribes declared Christ to be a bastard. In its article on Jesus, the Jewish Encyclopedia says that Jewish writings defame Christ. It is the tendency of all these sources to belittle the person of Jesus by ascribing to him illegitimate birth, magic, and a shameful death. Jesus, according to this article, was considered one of the 3 worst enemies of Judaism who came to an ignoble end. The Talmud says they subjected him to 4 deaths: stoning, burning, decapitation, and strangling. The Talmud also says he is now in hell, punished with boiling hot excrement. What is Christ's advice as he speaks to us out of hell? The Jewish Encyclopedia quotes Jesus as telling us above all to bless the Jews. He says, "Further their well-being, do nothing to their detriment. Whoever touches them touches even the apple of his eye." Christians, as followers of the false prophet Jesus, also deserve death. The Jewish Encyclopedia again recaps the Talmud's position. A Gentile observing the Sabbath deserves death. It says the Talmud's hatred was probably directed against the Christian Jews. These Judeo-Christians, evasively called min, minute, or minim, were considered by the rabbis to be the most dangerous form of heretics of ancient times. The New Testament Gospels were writings which the rabbis considered more dangerous to the unity of Judaism than those of the pagans. A Talmudic rabbi said, "The writings of Christians deserve to be burned, for paganism is less dangerous than minute or Christianity." The Jewish Encyclopedia, in its article on men, continues to illustrate the Talmudic hatred of Christianity. Again, we must remember, minim usually indicates the Judeo-Christians. It was forbidden to partake of meat, bread, or wine with the Christian. Scrolls of the law, tefillin, and mezuzot written by a Christian were burned. An animal slaughtered by a Christian was forbidden food. The relatives of the Christian were not permitted to observe the laws of mourning after his death, but were required to assume festive garments and rejoice. The testimony of a Christian was not admitted in evidence in Jewish courts, and an Israelite who found anything belonging to one who was a Christian was forbidden to return it to him.
The Pharisees, through their Talmud, thus gave the Jews an ethic which encouraged bigotry and isolation. But it did worse than that. It invited persecution. By the 11th century, the inhabitants of Babylon, growing weary of the self-righteousness and dishonesty of the Jews, expelled them to the west.
So those are just some of the frightening things that are in there, okay? So when Kanye West and these guys come on TV and they start saying, well, I praise Hitler, right? Of course it's going to make people out there go, oh, these people are lunatics. Oh, the poor Jewish people. Why do they have such a bad rap? Why do people go after them? And that's what Kanye is trying to do here. Kanye works for the Rothschilds, okay? Kanye is a billionaire. All this stuff about, oh, he's losing all this money and, oh, you know, Balenciaga, for example, he lost a sponsorship with Balenciaga, but Kanye still supports Balenciaga even after all those creepy pictures were put up. Anyone suspicious about that? People out there actually believe Kanye West is now a truther, and that's what they're trying to do. They're mixing Hollywood in with truth, and then you have their alt-right plants like Nick Fuentes and Milo and some of these other clowns that get, you know, Kanye West on their shows and things like that. Like Kanye West is going on YouTuber shows, being of conspiracy theorists. It's unbelievable. I haven't got a call. I'm probably one of the most known. I mean, I might, maybe not. I mean, maybe not anymore. But, you know, and would I ever have him on? Yeah. I mean, I talked to him on a live stream, you know. I mean, let's get to the actual answers. Let's talk about the blood sacrifice of his mother. Let's talk about how he was involved. Let's talk about why did it take 10 years for, you know, him to change? Why is he suddenly saying it now? Why has he never mentioned it before? Why all of a sudden is he, you know, he's running around being anti-Semitic all of a sudden, right? He's out there saying things like, oh, Hitler's great. I love some of the stuff the man did. Oh, okay. Could you speak of why, you know, who they are, right? He says they. right? Which is a common thing that I always say is they, and many others always say they, because they don't want to get censored, right? So now he's bringing that to the light so that whenever people start saying they're automatically going to get censored because they're going to assume they're talking about Jewish people who aren't really Jewish people. They're people who hijack Judaism and are under, pretending to be a certain group of people when they're not. They're not. They are of Satan in the synagogue of Satan. And it doesn't mean every single person. It doesn't mean your next door neighbor. It means these people who control all of the media, the Rothschilds, the people who control the land over in Israel. It's all been hijacked, okay? It's hard for people to understand because they automatically will just put a wall up when it comes to this topic, and that's what the elites want. They don't want anyone digging down the rabbit hole and seeing this stuff. They want people to automatically dismiss it, just like any other conspiracy. When somebody hears about chemtrailing, right? They automatically just go, oh, tinfoil hat wearer conspiracy. They don't even realize why they do it. They do it because they've been programmed. Well, they've been programmed as well to constantly throw up an anti-Semitism flag without actually looking into this stuff. It's okay, apparently, to look into Christianity, right? And question all the stuff that's in our teachings. And we try to wave the flag about Christian persecution and nobody wants to hear it. They're like, there's no such thing as Christian persecution. Oh, no? For one, you could just look at the Armenian genocide, which you never hear about, which was bigger than what they claim, the numbers with the Holocaust. The Armenian genocide, never hear about that, and the annihilation of Armenian Christian people living in the Ottoman Empire. You never hear about that. You have other things like the Bolshevik Revolution, et cetera, et cetera. Never hear about it, right? Why? Because they want you to be able to go after Christians. They want you to look at Christians like they're on a pedestal, that they're the reason, America's the way it is, et cetera, et cetera. It's not true. It's not true at all. It's a different group of people pretending to be a group of people. And really, the core of what these people are Satanists. They're Babylonian Satanists. That's what they should be called. And that should just end the topic of anti-Semitism in general. But they don't want you to discuss these things because it's hateful. It's hateful to question, specific groups of people, to show you the political connections to these people, to show you the connections to the Rothschild regime, etc. And Kanye West, again, Nick Fuentes, they're all playing roles. They're going to bring about massive censorship to the rest of the world, to the rest of us. I mean, if Kanye is so against these people, then why does he have Milo as his presidential campaign manager, right? So he's got Nick Fuentes and Milo. Couldn't be more opposite in their perspectives, right? Nick Fuentes is anti-gay, Milo is gay, but they're all hanging out together, And then they go, well, they're all just this crazy group of people hanging out together because they're all censored. Oh, does that mean that I should get together with everyone who's censored on YouTube and we should just form a faction and go around and we can get on all these huge podcasts and TV shows and InfoWars? Huh? Yeah, I'm sure. All of them are playing their roles. The alt-right plays a huge role in what is about to come. Jeff C. used to talk about this with me and on his own when he used to do videos way back in 2016, warning about the alt-right and what it was going to be. And now we're seeing what the alt-right has become. And he'd be going nuts over, I don't think he'd be, if he didn't pass tragically the way he passed, I don't know if he would even be alive today because he might have lost his mind if he saw where we've gone since over the last 2 years. It's insane what's happened over the last 2 years. Insane. And I mean, it's what we're getting to is obviously all being done on purpose because it's psychological on both sides. So you're going to have a lot of these Hollywood actors who are going to play roles in manipulating the public. Oh, they broke free from Hollywood. They broke free from the occult. They broke free from the cabal. They're fighting against them. They're all playing a role. They would be 6 feet under if they didn't want them to be doing this. They wouldn't have platforms to do it. They're like, well, they're being deplatformed off Twitter, et cetera, et cetera. They're out there and they're mentioned every day. Kanye West is mentioned every day all over mainstream media, right? Some people were like, oh, Chappelle he was speaking out, he was exposing them. He wouldn't have been hosting Saturday Night Live. They would have cut the mic and turned the lights off during his monologue that he gave, which I covered on my other channel. If you haven't seen it, make sure you click the link below and subscribe to that channel. The video is over there, and I talk about the reasoning for that. So this is all being done by design. The ridiculousness of it with Alex Jones, and they're praising Hitler. Of course, it gives people talking points to say conspiracy theorists are, racist, and they're anti-Semitic, and they're homophobic, because they just go out there with no nothing to back up what they're saying. They don't speak articulately. Not that I do, but, they don't give you any reason for what they're saying. They just go, hey, Hitler had great ideas. Hitler had some, he just keeps saying it. So people hearing it are like, this guy's lost his mind. This guy's insane. This guy, And then Alex Jones like, it's Sandy Hook, and he's, sitting in a courtroom and he's not backing up why he questioned it in the first place. He's just going, I didn't mean to say it. I shouldn't have said it. I was getting misinformation. They're all pushing censorship forward is what they're doing. And they're shining a spotlight on anti-Semitism again to make sure that that's at the forefront of all this. Not racism. They want to make sure, hey, you can't talk about homosexuality. Everybody's a racist, et cetera, but they want anti-Semitism at the forefront. Because they want to make sure that, again, that they're looked at and put on the pedestal of the most oppressed people ever in the history of life, so you can't question those people. So if you try to look in the Federal Reserve and try to look into who controls the media, you're an anti-Semitic, hateful, horrible person who should be thrown in jail. That's the mindset that they have. But in reality, it has nothing to do with the actual Jewish people. It has to do with the people who hijacked it. And that's what's been going on, and that's why a certain group of people, these people, have been run out of every country they've ever been in for the things that they're doing. And now they're getting away with it in the open, and they hide behind a bubble called anti-Semitism, which isn't a real thing. This video is likely to be taken down, of course, but I decided to do it to reach out to people and make sure they sub to my other channels or at least join the website if they want to hear more content like this. I appreciate everyone who is here. I thank you so much. Sub to the channels again below. Join the website and take care of yourselves. God bless all of you and your families.